Hi guys, and welcome to the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me, Jon Watts, today at Drayton Park Golf Club. I'm in my swing studio and today's video is all going to be about optimum numbers with your driver. So we're going to be talking through about how you can increase your distance by getting the right launch angle and the right spin rate. So I'm going to go ahead and hit a few shots with my driver and then talk through the numbers I'm getting, the spec of my club, and I'm going to start to relate that to you. So what would be the right kind of number for you if you're a slower swinger or a harder hitter? And actually what I want this to be is the start of a few different fitting videos to start to give you a better idea on what's going to make the biggest difference. I hear a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of misleading info about this shaft is going to do this for you. So I want to start to go a little bit more onto club. I see a load of great club review videos out there on YouTube, but not a lot done on club fitting, which I think is the more important part. You know, we don't want to know that the TaylorMade is better than the Callaway or the Callaway is better than the Titleist for an elite golfer at 115 mile an hour club head speed. What you really need to know is if you are swinging it at roughly this speed and this is your bad shot, this may work better for you because of X, Y, and Z. So I want to start to go a little bit more into club fitting rather than just product review. Let me start by hitting a few shots with my driver, and then we've got a little bit of data to talk about. There we go. So now when I hit these shots, you'll be able to see the ball flight on the screen as well. And after I've hit about 3, we'll just talk through some of the numbers that I'm achieving. That felt pretty good. Happy with that one. 2 more like that and I'll be over the moon. It's a nice high draw, pretty good carry distance and total distance. Without, and I shouldn't say this after one shot, but I tend to optimize the distance I hit it for my club head speed. I'm not a really hard hitter, but I get pretty much maximum distance out of the speed I generate. So I'd be hard pushed to hit the ball further, or much further than that, without really being able to generate more speed, which definitely I want. But really I maximize my speed that I do generate through pretty good launch angle and spin rate. That was a little lower out the club and cutting away, so it'd be good to actually look at the difference between those two. Still not bad distance, just as far as the other one actually. I thought that would have lost me a little bit more. One more. And that one was a bit toey. I should have stopped at 3 shots, I did say that. So let's talk through some of these numbers. So 3 shots, maybe I rushed it a little bit, but so my club head speed hovers around this kind of mark, 102, 103 miles an hour, somewhere around that. On a good strike, I'm getting the ball speed up to about 150. The first one actually felt the best. The second one actually gave me the highest ball speed and the longest shot, even though I cut it out a little bit to the right of the target. But I tend to, as I said, pretty much maximize the speed I hit it for the distance here. So I'm carrying them, that last one brought down my average that only carried just under 240, but I carried it 253 and 260 to hit them 280, 285, which at the speed I'm generating is pretty good. Now, how do I achieve that? I managed to get a relatively high launch angle, but keep my spin rate down. The last shot, in fact, I'm just going to, no, I'm not going to delete it. I'll keep it in there. The figure is a little lower, my average, because of that last shot in there. The first one to me felt pretty solid, and that was a launch angle at 15 degrees and a spin rate just under 1800 revolutions of backspin per minute. The second one launched a fraction lower and had a little bit more spin, and I didn't expect it to go as far, but you can still see a pretty good number. My optimum that I look for is a launch angle really somewhere between 13 and 16 degrees and a spin rate at around 2,000 revolutions. Harder hitters can get away with a lower launch, a lower spin. Slower swingers will definitely need to generate a slightly higher launch angle and a slightly higher backspin rate. But my distance definitely comes about because I get a relatively high launch angle and a relatively low backspin rate. As I said, that last one being quite toey, yeah, high toe, really brought that spin rate down. It was just hooking a bit too much. You can see missing target 30 yards left. That first one to me felt pretty much on the money. It finished 0 yards off target. It was a great launch angle. It was a really low backspin rate and optimized my distance really well. The first thing I would look at when you are trying to maximize the distance you hit it is the strike location. So we want the ball finding the middle of the golf club, absolutely. Then we can really start to control the ball flight, the misses. We're not getting inconsistencies from inconsistent strikes. So the center is what we're going for. But if we're going to be either way, we're better the ball striking a fraction higher in the head than lower. And that's just if the CG location of the golf ball strikes above the center of the golf club, we will get a slightly higher launch angle because we'll be increasing the dynamic loft, but we won't gain as much spin. If the ball strikes low out of the club, we'll be de-lofting the golf club dynamically, but because the center of the ball hit below the center of the golf club, the ball will actually be increasing in spin. It'll be trying to move up the club face as it takes off, and we'll increase the amount of backspin there. Now, when people are losing yardage with their drive, what I'm normally seeing is very high backspin rates. It's not something I struggle with. I never really have, and in fact, my driver is 12 degrees. So it's an M1 2017 model, set pretty neutral with the weighting, but it's quite high loft. I find that I can get away with less loft in some other manufacturers, Callaway, Callaway, Titleist and Ping, I was going to say. I can generally get away with 10.5 degrees. In TaylorMade, I tend to need a little bit more loft. You can see that doesn't push my spin rates through the roof, so there's no problem with it. I've got this set as standard loft. I've got the weights very neutral. I use a 65 gram stiff shaft. It's an Aldila Tour Blue. It's designed for a mid-launch and a mid to low spin rate, and it tends to work pretty well for me. I use the shaft a little bit shorter than, I guess, modern standards. It comes out playing length at 45 inches, and a lot of drivers are built lighter and longer, and they're going lighter and longer to try and generate more speed. And that's fine as long as the strike location's still good. But if you're really struggling with strike, what you would probably look at is shorter shafts and potentially even heavier shafts. So I think a lot of amateur golfers, when they're trying to lower spin, are thinking, well, the shaft's going to do it all for me. The tour players are generally choosing the shaft length that they can hit out of the center and weight that they can gain control of. They're actually looking at the head in terms of where the weight is and what the loft is to really start to control launch angle and spin rate. So for distance, high launch, low spin. How do we achieve that? The first thing is looking at strike location, where the ball's striking on the club face. Higher is better than lower, slightly toe is better than slightly heel. The other thing that we're going to just quickly talk about today is the difference between the angle of attack and the dynamic loft on the golf club. And it's something that sounds very technical, and it's called spin loft. But my driver, and in fact, I can tell you the exact number. The average, so my driver starts with 12 degrees. As an average, at impact on those 3 shots, I came through with 15.2 degrees of loft on. So I added 3.3 degrees of loft at impact. My angle of attack was, as an average, 2 degrees, 1.9 degrees on the way up. So the difference between my angle of attack, so if this was 0 degrees level to the floor, my angle of attack was 2 degrees on the way up, and the dynamic loft on the golf club, which is going to be represented by this green cane, was 15 degrees. The difference between them was 13 degrees. If that gap gets bigger, then we increase the amount of spin that we generate. So that's called spin loft. So that could be that our dynamic loft is still the same, but we hit down on it more and the gap between them has become greater, or we can maintain our angle of attack but increase the loft and the spin gets larger. So the closer the dynamic loft and which is this one, and the angle of attack are together, the less backspin we generate. So we want to be hitting on an upward angle of attack ideally, but we want to make sure we're not adding too much loft to the golf club. Now, why do a lot of amateur golfers not utilize speed and distance? I tend to find they're hitting down on the golf ball, and when they're hitting down, they're generally swinging from an out to in path. I think that's the most common thing we see amateur golfers struggle with, is an out to in downward path. And the compensation would be to try and leave the club face open. Because you're swinging down and left, the compensation is an open club face. That combination means I'm hitting down on the ball and I'm creating more loft. When we get that, the spin rates go through the roof. So what I want you to take from this short video was, we want a higher launch, a lower spin. What I want you to look at first is where you're striking the ball on the golf club. From a technique point of view, I want you to look or try and increase the angle of attack, so hitting more up on it. Now we could simply do that by tilting a little bit more behind the golf ball, moving the ball perhaps a little bit further forwards in our stance. We could encourage that from a higher tee. The other thing I want you to look at is the shot shape and the direction. If you are getting a ball that is a push, a slice, a fade, something that's going out right to target, moving that way, we know the club face is open compared to the path. We know that we're going to be adding on loft to the golf club, and that's going to really push our spin rates through the roof. My optimum numbers are a launch angle somewhere between 13 and 16 degrees, and at a spin rate of about 2,000. The slower you swing it, the higher you need those figures to be, not passing much more than 3,000 on the backspin rate, and not really passing any more than 16 to 18 degrees of launch angle for a slow swinger. For very hard hitters, you'll see some of the tour players bring that launch angle down to 10 to 13 degrees, and that spin rate's still around my number, 2,000, maybe 1,800. So there is a range in there. The optimum would depend on how much speed we generate, but getting those figures right is definitely going to maximize the distance we hit it. I hope you enjoyed the content of the video. I know it's quite a technical area, but what I'm going to start doing is a few more fitting videos, talking a little bit more, going into depth about what difference the shaft makes, the torque, the kick point, and what is the right sort of setup for you if you're struggling with a particular shot shape. If you want to see more videos like this and like I've described, make sure you give us a thumbs up and do post some comments below so I know that this is an area of interest and I can start to do a little bit more on this. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, as I said, give us a thumbs up. Do also check us out on our social media info below, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.